Hello everyone, welcome in today's video. In today's video we'll be going how to fix Kratos versus Asura. There are a lot of things I would like to teach you today about setting up a death battle, so with that let's break out the whiteboard and begin. Now I should go without saying that if you haven't watched the death battle already, watch the death battle, because this video is commentary about the death battle. I'm not going to re-show it. So go watch the death battle yourself, then come back to this video. In this video, we will cover the following. 1. When and how to visually reference the source material for fan service and creativity to make animations more fluid and engaging. 2. When referencing source material, how to ensure you are consistent to avoid contradiction. And then 3. How, using Death Battle's own feats and scaling methodology, this episode could have had records for the Death Battle series. Let's start with improving the animation's choreography, or in other words, the fight animation that occurred. The first thing I want to point out is a direct reference I'm pretty sure all of us spotted to when Kratos and Asura clashed together destroying the temple was meant to reference Boulder and Kratos clashing together and destroying a mountain. However, as we compare them side by side, I'm pretty sure most of us can agree the original source material looks a lot more intimidating, and for anyone who's played the game, it even has even more value. For that, let's go over why. The first thing is that when we look at the destruction range of both of these different feats, we can say that in the death battle we are destroying a temple, and that's really about it. The scale is a lot smaller, as opposed to in the actual God of War game, the entire mountain is destroyed. The next thing is the build-up. There wasn't really any build-up to this in the death battle itself, it just sort of happened as a cheesy moment to reference the God of War game. Well, in the game itself, the moment is actually hyped up just beforehand, as Kratos had pinned Boulder using a massive rock, ironically, and then after that, Boulder had shown he upscales even further by throwing this rock towards Kratos, the same rock that had initially started the mountain crack. And then afterwards is when Boulder and Kratos then pushed together and split the mountain apart. Furthermore, one other thing we don't get is much depth. If we look at the feat of when the temple is destroyed, immediately afterwards Kratos gets out of just a rock the size of him from the ground. It doesn't seem like this feat had much depth to it. Meanwhile, in the actual game, there is far more depth, as when Boulder pushes Kratos down, we can see exactly how deep and how depth there is in this feat. So with that, you can see that in the death battle itself, it would have been better if they could show more of what happens in the original. Perhaps instead of destroying just the temple, they could have zoomed out even further and split the whole mountain. Or when Kratos comes out of the ground, he's coming out from something much bigger than just a nonchalant rock. In fact, something that looks even better than this example we got right here is if in Injustice Gods Among Us, one of the wager clashes seems more dramatic. Perhaps when Kratos and Asura hold hands for a moment, they could have had some sort of dialogue exchange to hype up the moment. But at last, none of this happened. Let's now go on to something more critical that I find when it comes to the animation choreography, and that was when Asura goes in his destructive form against Kratos, and Kratos mimics what Asura did against Wyzen to counterattack. Now this looks very dramatic and well done mostly when it comes to the death battle, however it could have been much better given the source material that it was based on. For starters, let's first look at how it compares to the source material. In the source material, this feat is actually a combination of two different things. We have first, when Asura is fighting Wyzen, he throws Wyzen over the edge of a cliff. What happens then is Wyzen goes into his Vatra Wyzen form, a form bigger than a mountain. After that, later on in the fight, when Asura throws that version of Wyzen into space, he then appears from behind the Earth itself as Gonga Wyzen, a version of Wyzen bigger than the Earth itself. And of course, you can see both those elements in this moment in the death battle, where of course Asura appears from behind the rock, just as Vatra Wyzen did, and then afterwards, he's shown in an outwards view appearing behind the whole thing like some celestial being. However, this could have been made even better. Now the first thing that could have been improved in this scene is something I like to call power status, something that's often used in cinematography. As an example, if you guys remember the Avengers movie, early on when the serpents and the different aliens were appearing through the portal, the Avengers camera angle was pointing down at them to try and look at how small they were compared to everything that was going on. However, by the end of the movie, once they've saved the day and they've apprehended Loki, the camera is pointing up to them to show how powerful the Avengers have become. the power status has changed based on how the camera views them. If we then look at the Deathbattle, we can look at when Asura achieves his destructive form. Initially, the power status is looking down on him to try and get that magnified view, which is alright until later on when Asura is charging his fist and it's a neutral perspective. There's almost no hype whatsoever into Asura's strength at this moment in time. Compare that to that of the original Asura's Wrath, when Wyzen's doing his thing, we can see him poking his finger only gets more and more power status as the move progresses. Likewise, something they could have done in a Deathbattle but didn't, was when Asura appears over the mountainside in the Deathbattle, they could have made it similar to what happened in Asura's Wrath, with the shadow overshadowing and the camera viewing the Kratos down. This could have been done to make it seem even more powerful and dramatic, but sadly it wasn't. The next one I want to do is a minor critique, but will show sort of detail that the Deathbattle did well and could have done better. On the left hand side we have an example of Asura's fist approaching Kratos. In this one, the fist looks smaller than the rock that Kratos is on, and it makes it implied that it is not on some grand planetary scale, but maybe like on a mountain level. It's big, like a meteor, but not super large. If we compare the other perspective, where we zoom up to Kratos' face, the view of where the fist is so astronomically large, it's not even in view while the rock looks small. In that perspective, the fist is much bigger and a lot more dramatic, so Deathbattle should be aiming for perspectives like the second example, not the first. Now the last thing I want to talk about improving animation's choreography is not to always reference the source material. In this one moment we have Kratos responding to Asura, he does a big wide stance to try and replicate what Asura did with Wyzen. Although, unlike the Asura one, the one that Kratos won does a bit goofy and out of place. It's not something that Kratos would actually have done. And in fact, there are better things in God of War they could have animated or mimicked to make a better response. A personal favourite of mine would be this scene here. Could you imagine if Kratos had done something like that in response to what Asura's big transformation was? I think if he had done, the Deathbattle could have been even better, and that's what this video is about, making Deathbattle even better. To be positive, I also want to show some examples of my personal favourite moments in Deathbattle that I think really show a great power status, great scale, and a great overall depth of what we can see and what's going on. Enjoy these few examples.
Kratos is God. Battle for the universe, let's get striking. Feel the power and the force of the mightiest fight. Energy blast hit fast, our beams like lightning. Who can win a new god or the hands of a titan? I'm the king. I'm the king. Yeah, hard and pride crash like when stars collide. Feel it all inside. Fleeing so readily, Unicron. No devourer. Transforming. Beg not for mercy. Behold blackening skies. Against mine chaos, even gods will die.
Now let's talk about referencing your source material honestly. And what I mean is that several times in Deathbattle, to make things seem more simple and appealing to the viewers, they often pretend some aspects of the source material is one thing when it is actually not. There are several examples of such in this Deathbattle, but I'll be using an example of the golden statue of Chakravartin. This is what Deathbattle said.
At his peak, Asura overpowered Chakravartin, annihilating that cosmic golden god.
By measuring the dimensions of Chakravartin's body and scaling it up to match the size of this galaxy-eclipsing statue, we can determine its volume. Add in the density of gold, for good measure assuming the form is solid throughout, and its mass far exceeds not just our galaxy, but our entire observable universe.
Now you have all just heard what Deathbattle have claimed. They have claimed that the statue is solid, and that is true form Chakravartin, which Asura scales to. However, none of those three statements are correct. To anyone who's actually played Asura's Wrath, you'll even know that none of those were remotely correct. First off, Asura breaks into the statue and enters a subspace, so clearly the statue is not solid gold, it is hollow, so you cannot just assume the whole thing is solid. Next, that is nowhere near the full power of Chakravartin or the full power of Asura. First off, that is the weakest avatar of Chakravartin, as later on Chakravartin makes another avatar that's even stronger, and that stronger avatar is just a 2D illusion, one in an illusionary afterlife. And even then, the Chakravartin we are talking about so far is the suppressed form of Chakravartin, not even the true creator form of Chakravartin. And then after that, that still wouldn't be where Asura's max power comes in, as Asura's max power is far greater. How we know this is Asura gets so angry by the end of the game, in just his base form, he is more powerful than the true form of Chakravartin. Meaning the difference between the base form of Asura needs to upscale and scale above the full power of Chakravartin. All this scaling was completely missed by Deathbattle along with the original context. So that's what I mean when I say they should be honouring the original source material and they should be referencing it carefully and honestly. If they wanted to use a solid object to scale up from, they should have used the giant rock I used in my prediction video, which the Deathbattle have shown themselves. Furthermore, they could have easily made some estimations or predictions of how much of the bigger jump between Chakravartin and his avatar forms are, based on the fact that Chakravartin could stop the Asura who was fighting those forms with just one finger. So there was plenty of things Deathbattle could have done, but they didn't. Now, of course, this is just one segment and one example throughout the Deathbattle. There are many other I could have picked. In fact, in the next example, when I'm talking about breaking records for Deathbattle, I'm going to use another example of where they weren't fully honest, or where they weren't using the scaling properly. So just take that into account, because there could be more examples of this. Let's go over how Kratos could have set Deathbattle records. The first record attempt I'm talking about is that of speed. Helios's light was able to light up the entire universe in only a second, something that is mentioned twice in the Deathbattle itself, with two different quotes. Now that speed, if calculated, would have translated to 1.4 sextillion times the speed of light on a low end. This low end is talking about moving the radius of the universe in 1 second. In truth, it could have been far greater, because as we know, Atlas can be able to hold up the universe, and Atlas is standing in the underworld, meaning the underworld is likely even larger. And if we use this low end, he is still 1,000,000 times what Deathbattle gave them in the Deathbattle itself, and on a record standpoint, it would have been the third highest speed calculation on Deathbattle, at least to my knowledge. The two people with higher speed calculations are that of Darkseid, and then Mega Man. Now let's do a record attempt with Kratos' power. To my knowledge, the three highest calculations in terms of attack potency on Deathbattle are the Universe 7 calculation in the Goku vs Superman episode of 1,505 times our universe. Then in second place is the Scooby-Doo calculation at 11 quadrillion times our own universe. And then we have the Prime Earth DC Comics calculation at 1.62 vigintillion times our own universe, all of which are huge numbers. Now, according to Deathbattle, the World Tree at about 10% hollowness gets a result of 9.9 million times our universe. This is already more than Universe 7, but nowhere near Scooby-Doo or the DC's Prime Earth. However, we can do much better, because Deathbattle make an interesting point. That was at 10% hollowness for the World Tree. I'm asking you a question before I move on. How solid do you think the universe is? Remember, the universe is mostly empty space. So how solid is the universe will make this scaling a lot more bigger for how hollow it is. Now, the average density of the average matter in the universe is dictated by how much hydrogen and helium there are, and looking at their densities and averaging them out to about 0.163 kilograms per cubic meter. We then get the volume of the universe at 358 quinvigintillion cubic meters to get its mass, as if the universe was solid, to be 3.7 quinvigintillion kilograms. Now that is a lot. However, the actual universe mass is only 146 sextillion kilograms. This means that the actual hollowness of the universe is so astronomically large, it is 3,947th nonillionths of a full solid amount. Now that hollowness is so large and so confusing, I had to put it into a calculator to tell me what those words actually were. This means that to fix Deathbattle's calculation of the world tree, we need to multiply the 9.9 million times our own universe by 253 septillion. This results in an end result of 2.5 decillion times our own universe. That is enough to beat Scooby-Doo, but it's not yet enough to beat that of Earth Prime. However, there's a little bit more we can do. Now, to continue from where we were, we have to use one other thing that Deathbattle said, because interestingly, Deathbattle once again gave evidence to show that Kratos can be even stronger. They said this.
According to Freya, the tree's very existence supports all of creation among its boughs. Every strand transcending time, transcending space.
That's right, you just heard it too. Deathbattle admitted that every single strand of the world tree surpasses both time and space, which is a universal level feat because you're surpassing the entire universe if you're surpassing all of time and space. The size of these strands is something we can actually see in game, literally shown in Freya's hands, on the top of my head to be estimated about 1000 cubic centimeters or 0.001 cubic meters. Therefore, the scaling for Kratos and the world tree becomes a lot more. It becomes the calculation of how many of these small strands can you fit in the volume of 2.5 decillion times our universe's volume. Remember, the universe's volume is 358 quinvigintillion cubic meters. When doing that full calculation for how many of these strands you can fit inside the universe's volume when it's 2.4 decillion times larger than normal, we get a total number of 899.7 septrillion times our universe. Now let's do a comparison between how much power Kratos has and the highest finite attack potency that has appeared on Deathbattle, being 1.62 times 10 to the power of 63 times our universe, and Kratos shaking Yggdrasil would be 899.7 times 10 to the 115 times our universe. That is nearly double the exponent, and that would have easily been a new record for Deathbattle history. And with that, thank you all for watching this video. Check out my playlist of different types of explains and expected outcomes I have done for different death battles. Also, you can check out the description of this video where I've got a list of other power scalers with interesting content I think you all should check out. You can also check out my most recent videos as well as whatever YouTube is recommending you right now. And with that, thank you all for watching, have a good day.